Ivey's going to raise it up. He makes it 1800. He's got a couple of 10s there. We've got an action flop here. Tony G is flop top 2 pair.
All in.
And look at this. Tony G check raises all in. Pot is $138,000.
Well, he's decided to call.
And the river is the king of clubs, and Tony G is going to win this pot. Tony G is going to play, though. He's going to raise it up with a couple of 7s.
Patrick Antonius, he may well call here.
I think he's thinking of re-raising this one with Jack 10.
Wow, what a flop.
And look at that. Patrick Antonius bets $50,000 and an immediate call from Tony G. It's the Tony G show. Antonius got trip aces, but Ivey's got a full house 9s full of aces. The pot is already nearly $17,000.
Wow, what a card.
4 on the river. And Antonius has made full house. Patrick Antonius moves all in. And
he says call.
He is called. This is the biggest pot in the history of televised poker in Europe. It's unbelievable.
Chris raising it with the Queen Jack.
We've seen this before. Chris Ferguson raising, Phil Ivey calling. Oh, there's 2 pair.
That's going to make Chris feel a little bit happier about his hand. It's also going to give some outs for Phil.
$35,000 into a $33,000 pot. He does call. He's going to take over a $100,000 pot.
From America and across Europe, the big names have brought the big money to London, and this game is all about making your friends go broke. Each player is starting with a minimum of $100,000 of their own cash, and if they lose it, they can simply reach into their own pockets and buy back in. The starting lineup for this game is a who's who of poker. Roland de Wolf is the only Brit in the field, and he'll be hoping to make home advantage count against some of the biggest names in the game. Howard Lederer is the professor, and he'll be using his experience to capture his rivals' chips. 4 bracelets and $3.5 million already won. Another American, Alan Cunningham, has picked up 5 World Series of Poker bracelets and has nearly $10 million worth of cash in the bank. Eric Lindgren is a man who likes to gamble. He has tasted success in 2007 and will be looking to add to his $5.5 million prize fund. Phil Ivey is widely regarded as the best cash game player in the world. This golf fanatic will be confident of adding to his tournament winnings. Heralding from Finland, Patrick Antonius now lives in Las Vegas. He is one to watch, and this tennis player will be looking for the aces. Brian Townsend is a famous online player, but he is used to the big time and is a regular high-stakes cash game player.
Hello and welcome to the FullTiltPoker.com $1 million cash game in association with 50 London. The aim of the game is to make as much profit as possible over the course of the tournament, and as a result we have got 11 of the highest rollers in the game, all with hundreds of thousands of dollars of their own money in their back pocket and ready to play. Let's get straight to our commentators then, Gary Jones and David Tuckman.
It's the FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game in association with 50 London.
Paid $600 for his rent, like he was behind on his rent. He got like $118,400. Can you imagine just...
Action is on Brian Townsend.
Just like having all those chips and just going, you know...
Not going to play. Over to Alan Cunningham here. He's not going to play either.
He just like walked up to the...
Chris Ferguson on the button. Queen 10 offsuit. That's good enough to raise it up, see if he can steal. And of course, in form, Patrick Antonius, he defends pretty much with any 2 cards in the big blind.
He certainly does, and he's played absolutely flawlessly once he's got involved. Here he's flopped bottom pair, he's gone in front.
Yeah, Chris Ferguson's got an open-ended straight draw, but it's all clubs out there.
Check.
Neither player can really like this flop.
He had a partner, but I never looked the guy up.
3,000.
And Ferguson is going to bet it.
A little bit bigger, he probably would have got this one through. As it happens, Patrick's going to release anyway.
Yeah, not a great flop for Queen 7. Although I'm not sure how many good flops there are for Queen 7.
I was just thinking that myself.
Well, Patrick Antonius is really showing the world, the poker world, do not try to steal my blind, because I will defend.
To get started, one player is made the nominated dealer or button. Then the two players to the left post the small and big blinds. These are force bets to get the action started. The big blind is always double the small, but unlike a tournament, the blinds rarely change. However, they are sometimes increased to spice up the action. We start here with $300 and $600. There's also an ante of $100 per player, which must be paid if they want to play in a hand. Once the blinds and antes are posted, everyone is dealt 2 cards. We have a round of betting. Then 3 cards are placed face up on the table, called the flop. These are the community cards for all the players to use. Then we have another round of betting, after which the 4th card, the turn, is placed in the middle. This is followed by some more betting and the last community card, the river. Then we finish off with a final round of betting. The best 5-card hand takes the money.
Buttons in front of Patrick Antonius.
After the
Roland, he's having a conversation with Phil Ivey.
After the Rubik's Cube fiasco.
Probably talking prop bets or golf.
Or prop bets on golf, I don't know.
Action is on Howard Lederer, the professor.
No good? Oh shit. Okay. I see what I've done.
600.
I see what I've done wrong now.
Round to Chris. Phil.
That was only 8 when I tried.
Another just black call from Phil in the cut-off spot this time. 9-6 offsuit.
600 full. Raise 3,300.
That's why King Queen of Hearts with no one else in apart from the limping Phil Ivey. That looks like a big hand. Wow, and that looks like a bigger hand to me. Now the decision, does he try and leave Brian Townsend up front, or does he put the re-raise in? That looks like a big re-raise to me. It's getting bigger as well.
I can be anywhere.
Now Roland de Wolf only has 43,000. I would have thought maybe he would slow play this a little bit.
He's got to find some way to try and get some action, and a re-raise is probably not the way.
Well, certainly not a re-raise of that magnitude. And obviously Phil Ivey is gone. But I can't imagine Brian Townsend calling this. Roland de Wolf is just not deep enough.
28. Unprovoked. It was so good. Little kid in the mullet.
Some poor, like, semi-talented poker.
One last squeeze before a release. Yep, that's what's happened.
And I'm a big fan of Roland de Wolf's game. But I have to say, I think he misplayed that hand. I think he overplayed it. Why not let your opponent see a flop and maybe win a big hand?
Exactly. Take a chance. That's what Phil Ivey did against Chris Ferguson. Managed to win a very nice pot. He's $52,000 now, Roland, and that was possibly an opportunity for him to get out of it.
Small blind, Howard Lederer. Big blind, Alan Cunningham. And Eric Lindgren will be under the gun. He's first to act. He's got a lot of scalp there, doesn't he?
600 to go.
It's with Chris. Back to the flat calling with Phil Ivey, this time 5-4.
600. 3 more.
Really is uncharacteristic play from Phil. He's usually the most aggressive player at the table.
Any option?
Alright, no raise.
No raise. 4 players. Two, 3, 6.
Flops all spades there. And
So-
that's
so
a nice flop. This is a really interesting hand here. Ivey has
3,000.
flopped a straight with the 5 of spades. He has a straight flush draw. Roland de Wolf has flopped an actual flush.
2,000.
And he's got the 4 spades in his hand, so Ivey cannot catch it.
And a pass. 3 players.
And how much money is Ivey going to lose on this one?
Alan Cunningham can always catch another spade. That 3 might slow people down a touch.
Checked.
Pot is $9,200.
6,000.
6.
6,000 from
6,000.
Phil Ivey.
Pot is now $15,200. 6,000 to call. Roland DeWolf way ahead here.
And Phil Ivey's actually drawing dead at the moment. The only danger to Roland DeWolf is Alan Cunningham, and he's just released.
And pass.
And the pot is now 21,200. And the real question is, how much is Ivey going to bet, or is he going to check? And how much money is DeWolf going to bet?
What did I bet? 6?
6.
Okay. You can also go that way.
That's 3. 6. Okay.
And here's the river.
Last card. Jack.
River's the jack of diamonds. That changes nothing. Pot is $21,000. And Phil Ivey's nightmare continues.
18,000.
Cool. I got straight. I got a flush. Sorry.
And Roland DeWolf was going to take this one down.
He says call straight away. And like you say, Phil Ivey's nightmare continues.
Well, it's probably fair to say that Phil Ivey has not had the rub of the green in the sessions we've just seen. When you look back at them, are you philosophical or bitterly disappointed with how it's gone?
Neither. It's just poker. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, I lost a couple hands. I made some mistakes, but you expect to make some mistakes in a poker session. And, you know, there's still some time left. I'm not going to really worry about it too much, and I'm just going to try to play okay. You know, I've never really gotten to a rhythm today, and it's showing, and hopefully some things will change.
Phil Ivey's got the live straddle on this pot. That means he's put a third blind in voluntarily, $1,200. Kicks up the action, also means he gets to see what everyone else does before he looks at his cards.
Well, he's doing so well. Why not put more money in the pot?
4,100.
A raise from Brian Townsend. He's got King Jack. Ace-3 for Chris Ferguson. Actually in front of Brian Townsend at the moment. But Phil calls.
4,100. Cool.
He's out of position.
Pot is about 9,500. Heads up to the flop. And here it is. Queen Jack 10. Well, it's an interesting flop for both players.
Check.
You've got a flush draw for Phil Ivey, and you've got an open-ended straight draw with a pair for Brian Townsend.
It's definitely an opportunity for Phil to maybe get a chance to get some of his money back.
Check.
Goes check, check. You might regret that if an ace of spades comes down.
4.
It's a 4. It's no spade.
Pot is $9,900.
Semi-bluff opportunity for Phil here.
I don't think Brian Townsend's going anywhere, though.
8,000.
Neither do I. It's just a question of whether he flat calls or if he makes a raise. I'm guessing a flat call. He doesn't want to bet himself out of this one with his king as well, just in case he is behind.
8,000.
And you're right. Pot is now $25,900.
You can put the 8 right on top of that piece.
Put the 8 on top.
Ivey needs a spade. Brian needs nothing.
Okay, there we go.
And here's the river.
Jack.
River's the jack of hearts. And Ivey's nightmare just continues. He cannot buy a pot.
Checked.
And Phil Ivey has checked it. Brian Townsend's deciding how much to bet, but it's kind of academic. Phil Ivey's giving up on this pot, I'm pretty sure.
22.
And he bets 22,000. Phil Ivey quickly folds. He's 6 high.
Okay.
And it's almost as if at this point, Brian Townsend couldn't win a pot earlier. Roland DeWolf couldn't win a pot. But they're even getting well against Phil Ivey.
Exactly. They found the one person they can beat. Poor Phil Ivey. Nothing going his way right now.
And here's the leaderboard after 270 hands at the $1 Million Cash Game. Tony G, still our big winner. He's got $260,000 and he's waiting in the bar. Not at the table. Patrick Antonius, 102,000 up. Chris Ferguson, 84,000. Brian Townsend has really made a nice comeback. He's only down 79,000. Remember earlier, he was down over 170. Phil Ivey, he is approaching the $400,000 mark.
Back and best tight end. And pretty good quarterback.
It's the Full Tilt Poker.net $1 Million Cash Game. The action has been fiercely competitive.
This is for British TV.
Button is in front of Phil Ivey. He's taking off his leather jacket. He's ready to mix it up. And the action is on Roland DeWolf. He's smiling now. He's made back a little bit of the money that he lost earlier. He's got a gap-suited connector, 8-6 of clubs in first position.
Oh, no, I don't think
it's a hand I like in late position, but not necessarily in first position.
I would hope that the
but Roland DeWolf likes it.
Can you imagine if American football players faked injury?
Yeah, actually, they don't fake.
They're legitimately hurt.
Yeah. Action over to Ivey on the button. I haven't seen his cards yet, but you'd imagine he's going to call.
A lot of contacts here.
Well, Ivey's going to throw away the 8-deuce.
The tennis players, that's the guys who play tennis, they're the real.
300.
I used to play.
The real fakers.
Brian Townsend taps the table, and we're going to see a flop.
They say they have back injuries. They just make it up.
We've got it 3 ways.
I'm telling you.
3 players.
They don't watch soccer, they fake injuries.
9-6-4 Rainbow.
Why? Trying to get the call.
Trying to get a yellow card.
Check.
Both Townsend and DeWolf have made second pair here.
2,300.
They get tackled hard. And
Brian Townsend ahead here with the queen kicker.
Free kick from that spot. But if you can show that you
2,300 is called. There's a pass.
Townsend bets. DeWolf calls.
Which can get him ejected from
and Antonius gets out of the way.
Yes, familiar territory here. These two having clashed earlier on.
Turn is a 3 of spades. Changes nothing. Townsend's still ahead. And Townsend's going to continue to bet this. He thinks he has the best hand, and he's going to continue to fire.
6,300.
Yeah.
This time Roland decides to get away from the hand. Rightly so. And Brian Townsend picks up that pot.
Here we are at the ranking of the hands. First we have high card. In this case, a king high would win it. Then we have 1 pair. In this case, pair of aces. Then 2 pair. Jacks and 9s will do it. Then 3 of a kind. 3 of the same one. 3 4s. Then we have a straight. 5 cards in order, not the same suit. Then a flush. 5 cards, the same suit. 5 hearts will do it. Then we have a full house. 3 7s, 2 kings. This would be 7s full of kings. 4 of a kind. 4 kings. Then we have a straight flush. 5 cards in order, all the same suit. And here's the most beautiful hand in the world. Royal flush. 10, 2 ace, all the same suit.
Howard Lederer is going to be first to act in this pot.
About American football. People will just the viewing figures for American football in this country is like 4.
And they're all betting.
It'll go down to 3 when we leave.
Yeah. So our whole hotel, the room service guy was overwhelmed at 3 in the morning. He couldn't figure out why. I said, everybody watching American football.
Round to Phil. He's in the cutoff.
I don't know, they sold out the game at Wembley.
Just calling the 600.
600 called.
Seems to be his MO right now.
Option.
Everyone checks.
3 players.
3 to the flop.
2 king 10. Checked.
King's nice for Roland DeWolf. Those 2 check.
Checked.
Laying the trap for Phil Ivey. He doesn't fall for it. He takes his free card and catches the ace. And because of the way he's played this hand, they're probably not going to give him the ace. So something finally going Phil Ivey's way.
16.
Don't get ahead of yourself. It's still a river.
Well, as you can see, there's only a 5% chance of Roland DeWolf improving here. And I can't imagine Brian Townsend calling for his queen.
With 3,000.
A small raise by Phil, and Roland gets away from the hand straight away.
Well, there is no river, and Phil Ivey has something to smile about.
He was a decent player. He might have been in the top 10 in the world at his absolute peak. Yeah, he was. He's not the most natural player.
This is interesting. Got a bunch of Americans talking about football.
Hard-working guy with a great leg.
Well, maybe because David Beckham's now an export to America, they've all become experts on the game.
So fragile.
He was a marketing thing.
Seemed like he was also pretty good at.
But we're not using it for marketing.
Moving the ball, like
he's a good free kick.
He was good at like getting the ball midfield and seeing that open.
He was a good player. He was a very good player at his peak. But
I understand he's way past his prime. And now it's like even if he was good, he's so fragile.
Emotional.
Call for six. Call for six. Yeah. And Brian Townsend with Queen Jack.
3,300.
He's going to
pushing it up.
Pass.
Yeah, he's going to buy himself the button with that raise and take control of this pot.
3,003.
He's also got rid of Phil Ivey. Just leaves Patrick Antonius. Is he going to call to try and catch a set? There's your answer.
Now, of course, the problem with calling a raise against an aggressive player like this, even if you hit your six, you might not win a big pot.
No, it's just posh.
Exactly.
Because Brian Townsend doesn't necessarily have to have a big hand. And here's an example. And this is actually a monster. Brian Townsend has top pair. Patrick Antonius has a set. But how much money is Brian Townsend really going to lose with just Queen Jack here? And you can look at the percentages. 98% for Patrick Antonius. $8,000 bet for Brian Townsend. We've already seen that Brian Townsend will bet his marginal hands.
But what they allow on TV
but can he get away from his marginal hands?
TV is a lot more liberal in
it's going to be
Europe.
Unusual. Interesting to see how Patrick decides to play this. Does he just call the 8? Or does he go for the throat and raise it up?
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes when you're out of position.
Well, here you can't say bloody, but
cold.
And it looks like he calls this.
And in Europe, it's
pot is about $23,000 to the turn.
Wait till you go to Germany.
King of
Hearts.
Hearts.
What they have after like 5
doesn't really change anything.
Really?
Brian Townsend can't beat King Queen, but he couldn't beat King Queen before the King came.
Checked.
Patrick Antonius is really using Brian Townsend's aggressive nature against him. He's checked it, and he's going to let Townsend bet again.
The bet's $20,000.
Yeah, 2-1.
Pot is now $43,000.
2002, right?
20,000 to Patrick. Patrick, the Iceman.
Yeah, but you were down 1-0, and then they ejected a Brazilian player.
No, we were ahead 1-0.
You were ahead 1-0, and they ejected a
Phil Ivey.
Sent off, yeah.
Just squashed you from there.
An interested onlooker.
Really, really sad.
I think it was 1-1 when the guy got sent off, but it could have been 1-0.
Yeah, the fellow who scored the goal got sent off.
Yeah, it was already.
Is he going to check raise here? Is this the time to check raise right now?
Well, if he does check raise, I think that king could have killed his action. It's going to be very easy for Brian to give him kings and queens.
20,000's gold.
He just calls. I think that's probably his best chance of getting on in this pot once that king's come down.
5.
And how do you play the river, though?
Last card.
Out of position. Almost hoping for a queen or a jack to come. Well, that's not it. That's a 4 diamonds. One more hand that Patrick could have there. Brian Townsend could put him on 7-8. Pot is $63,000. Patrick Antonius trying to decide how to play this. He's going to check it. And Brian Townsend does like to value bet his marginal holdings.
It's going to be interesting to see whether he can sniff out his behind here. Looks like he's still reaching for the black chips.
Yeah, Brian Townsend, I really haven't seen more than one speed. I've seen one speed and one speed only. And he looks like he has a lot of money there. Looks like he has 2 black chips, I want to say. And those black chips are $25,000. If you want to be a successful poker player, you have to have more than one speed. Let's see how he does this.
Looks like only one black chip.
You're right. It's one black chip, but a lot of red chips. And it's a
$40,000.
$40,000 bet. $40,000 bet into a $63,000 pot. The pot's $103,000. And at this point, if you're Patrick Antonius, do you raise? Or do you put maybe, are you scared of queens or kings? $103,000 pot. $40,000 to Antonius.
There's really only one hand he can get a call from here that he's in front, and that'd be Queen King. I can't imagine him re-raising this one.
Brian Townsend was the pre-flop raiser. He could have pocket queens, he could have pocket kings. And you're probably right. Nothing else would call a raise.
Phil Ivey watching on intently. For once, he's not the one getting beaten up in the pot. It's his fellow big loser, Brian Townsend.
And at this point, does Brian Townsend even want to call? You can feel the tension.
Let's see, do I have cards from
Patrick Antonius is not going to fold here. I'm pretty sure of that. Just deciding whether he should raise, whether there's any value to the raise.
Yeah. I'll bring up 6.
Looks like he's counting out a number of black chips in this pot. That looks like a raise.
Yeah, it's a big raise.
150,000.
He makes it $150,000.
I think Brian Townsend's just realised his hand's no good.
I was wondering if Brian Townsend actually wanted a call. He certainly didn't want that. And the
Where is it exactly?
And the pot is $250,000, $110,000 to call. Brian definitely not happy to see the raise there on the river.
He's reaching for his chips.
Wow, is he really going to call this? What hand can he beat? What hand would Antonius call the flop with, the turn with, and then raise the river with that he can beat?
What has he convinced himself that his opponent's got?
You wonder, he can't beat 7-8, and look at that, he calls. Oh, I cannot believe it. We have the biggest pot at the $1 Million Cash Game, $363,000. Unbelievable. $363,000.
Masterfully played. I don't know if I'd have tried to go for the value re-raise on the end. I just couldn't imagine that Brian Townsend would call with a hand like that. He has, and more power to Patrick Antonius' arm. He's just won an absolute monster.
And off to a leaderboard. After 276 hands, we didn't think it would happen, but we have a new leader. Patrick Antonius is up over $280,000. Tony G not at the table anymore. He's in the bar, but he's only up over a little over $260,000. Brian Townsend now down over $250,000, and Phil Ivey, of course, down $363,000. But Phil Ivey, he's going to fight back. He's rebought for $300,000 more. It's the FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game in association with 50 London. And we have a massive game here, over $1.8 million on the table. I'm David Tuckman, alongside poker professional Gary Jones. And the action has been absolutely intense. Phil Ivey has rebought for $300,000 more. He is actually in this game for $800K, and he's down $370,000. Brian Townsend in seat number 8 has rebought for $200,000 more. He just lost a monster pot against Patrick Antonius and has reloaded, trying to get it back.
Phil Ivey's raised it in first position in this hand. Roland de Wolf's called in. Eric Lingram's in the pot as well. Ferguson gets out the way and leaves him to it. Interesting calling hand there, the Jack-6 of spades for Roland. Eric Lingram with the only genuine hand. He's in the small blind, but he's out of position. Here comes the flop. Check. And that's a pretty good flop for Eric. Top pair nut kicker. Check.
Well, Roland's got something there too. He's got spades.
Everyone checks. Well, that 3, no help.
It's an interesting check by Roland de Wolf. He's in position with a flush draw and doesn't try to take a stab at it.
Well, he thinks if Eric's checking any kind of hand in first position and he catches the flush, Roland's going to get paid. You can also put the pressure on with the re-raise here now, hoping that Eric's betting a marginal hand. He doesn't know, he just calls. Here comes the river. Needs a spade. That's not it.
Nothing spade-like there. Queen of hearts. And Lindgren's going to bet this. And I like the bet. 12. I think he showed weakness in the flop. And obviously Roland de Wolf doesn't have anything, but Eric Lindgren doesn't know that. He might have gotten a call from a 7.
Yeah, it's true.
And let's go to a leaderboard. Tony G was leading, but no longer. Patrick Antonius on top of the board. He's up $287,000. Tony G is up over $250,000. Chris Ferguson up $80,000. And let's look at the guys at the bottom of the board. Phil Ivey down $366,000. Brian Townsend down over $250,000.
Is that why you're doing it?
The two guys, the one in seat 6 and the one in seat 8, are losing $600,000 between them. Flat call from Roland de Wolf here. Phil Ivey's blind. He hasn't even took his cards in yet. Just reaching for them now. Alan Cunningham in as well. Eric Lindgren on the button, slow playing his 10s. We've seen this kind of play before.
Action on you, Chris.
8-9 for Phil.
Many no-limit cash game players will slow play those middle pairs.
You got replaced, boys.
So if they hit the flop,
that's why I don't want them to raise.
They'll never know.
No one would have
raise.
No one likes to see
38 total.
And there's Phil Ivey's rebuy. Those are $25,000 chips there. Those black ones. One chip, $25,000.
Looks like a bit of a dead money pickup from Chris Ferguson out of the small blind. He's raised it up with pocket 5s. Eric Lindgren with the 10s on the button he's calling. These two are the only two left in the pot.
And that's sometimes the reason why you limp in with 10s. Not a good flop, though, for Eric Lindgren.
It's not a good flop for Chris Ferguson either, but if he leads out, it might be good.
Yeah, you'd imagine whoever bets this is going to win it. Pot is about $10,000. And here's a continuation bet from Chris Ferguson, and that should get it done.
Not the flop that Eric had in mind when he called the bet on the button.
No, nice play by Chris Ferguson.
Yeah, not really the flop he had in mind either, but the bet's enough, and he takes that one down. Good play, Chris.
Hey, Phil. Phil.
We got to bet on this, Phil. Huh? We got to bet on this. How much would it take for you to take a desk job next year?
For 1 year.
1 year, working 9 to 5, let's just say average company, you don't know anybody that works there. How much?
Every day.
No gambling.
I know you went last.
No gambling on the job.
Let's say what would interest you to try it. Let's just. I know you went last. Like at any price, you would just quit. But let's not. That's not the point. What would it take to get you?
Talking about just how much.
To think.
How much money or how much money for you?
No, how much money?
How much of your money?
Yeah, how much of money? All right, how much of my money that I wish I had would you?
2001.
So Eric's money.
Why don't you write a number down? And if I say it, it has to happen. You gotta first of all, you
Can
gotta
I get a
me
pen and
job.
paper to table 1?
Gotta get him the job. That's how it's put.
9 to
You gonna
5.
give me a job.
9 to 5.
No.
9 to 5 every day, and random average.
They'll hire you. Ever heard of affirmative action?
Yeah, right.
A call from Phil. Wow, he's got ace-king, ace-queen for Brian Townsend. These two are the guys who are stuck the most. Patrick Antonius in the middle with queen 9.
It was the John Hennigan bet. Spending a month in
Queen high, that's very good for Brian. We've already seen some big action between Patrick Antonius and Brian Townsend.
He had gotten back from the bar.
That was before they had internet poker, though, right?
He'd like asked the guy, the cab driver, like take me to the hop in his bar.
And this time, Townsend is in control.
Showed up at some bar and there's like some guy with like 3 teeth.
Phil trying to be clever with the ace-king.
There's like 4 people.
Didn't manage to catch the flop he had in mind.
Younger than 50. He did not.
But it is the flop that Brian Townsend needed right now.
That's what it'd take to give me a job.
Only missing 2 teeth there.
Cool.
Better 6, call a 6.
I said your number would be 20.
It was before internet poker, right? You could have just, otherwise you could have just stayed in the room.
Here's the turn. It's a 10. Puts 2 hearts out there as well.
Yeah, he loses if he quits.
Patrick Antonius catching some more outs.
No, not a bet. Just no.
Yes, he needs a heart or a 9.
But you only get the money.
Pot is 19,100.
That won't happen. You're a good worker.
Yeah. I'll be on time a lot.
11 cards to improve. The ace of hearts in Brian Townsend's hand.
Have a little sack lunch. I could get fired. Yes, you could. Let's pretend you did a good job.
If you didn't wear socks, you might get fired.
21.
Last time these two met, we had a pot that was over $300,000 that went to the superstar from Finland.
He is the Paris Hilton poker, so.
But this time Patrick Antonius does not have a set.
100,000
million.
This time he's just got top pair. He's got a flush draw.
million?
But only a 9 kicker, and the 9 kicker is not good right now. He's a 3-to-1 dog to win this pot.
21,000 the bet from Brian Townsend.
It's pretty stress-free.
Pot is 40,000, 21,000 to call. It's a big bet on the turn, isn't it?
I don't think that's what he wants.
What do you consider stress?
Actually having tough decisions, as opposed to just showing up and like.
He looks like he's
pushing
reaching
the
for some
spreadsheet
black
around,
chips.
you're done,
Rubber pencil going and stuff like that.
The black chips are worth $25,000.
Brian Townsend, he admitted that Patrick Antonius outplayed him with the set of 6s.
Cool.
He just calls.
And he's going to call, and this pot is quickly becoming a monster. $61,000.
What's your number for playing?
Brian Townsend in front right now. A heart or a 9 needed for Patrick Antonius. It's not. It's the jack.
And that's got to be a scary card. You start thinking of what hands call you. Queen Jack has got to be one of the hands that maybe call you.
Well, Patrick could have pretty well anything. They're in the blind. He's in the blind, don't forget.
Pot is $61,000. It's amazing how big these pots get. Both players only have 1 pair.
Seems like a fair system.
I would do it for 5 million. The desk job. We could,
Phil Ivey must be pretty sick right now, of course. He passed ace-king. It's gone check. Normally he'd be betting this one for value, but he got spanked the last time he did that. Cost him $150,000. This time he's just pulling in a $60,000 pot. Just pulling in a $60,000 pot. Can't believe I'm saying that. Maybe the start of a road to recovery for Brian Townsend.
You constantly have to adapt your style when playing top players. If you do the same thing every time, good players like Patrick Antonius and Phil Ivey and everyone else at the table for that matter, are going to catch on very quickly, and they're going to take advantage of that. So you really need to be doing things differently each time with the same hand.
It's the FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game in association with 50 London.
Yeah.
We're playing 300, 600 blinds, $100 ante, and there is nearly $2 million on the table. Our big loser there, Phil Ivey, down almost $400,000.
That was fun.
Chris Ferguson, the 2000 world champ, next to him. He's having quite a good day. He's up almost $100,000.
They wrote that he regretted voting for me because he forgot that I was old school and I wouldn't have enough gamble to win. And then, that's like just a little That's not.
Good read by
There comes Phil.
Suited Queen 10.
Cool.
Makes it 2,000. Brian Townsend, quick call with the Queen King.
And he changed old school for
He's got Phil dominated right now, but Phil's got leading the action.
Cool.
The ace of Eric Lindgren also in the pot.
Phil Ivey in bad shape there. Dominated on both sides.
Check.
In the same poll.
And that's going to catch him a little bit as well.
That gives you an idea how
He's caught the Queen, but so has Brian Townsend.
Yeah.
It's hard to be the best and be underrated.
Well, that was like right after
3 hearts out there, and nobody has a heart.
WPTs, and my main competition was Gus.
The last guy that held that title was Phil Hellmuth. Best player and underrated.
In his own head.
Only one person voted. Can you get to
And that person voted several times.
So I've completely come full circle. Now I'm over.
7
I can just see like
means the kicker of Phil Ivey is no longer relevant.
Check.
Goes check, check. Wow, that's a surprise with 3 hearts on the board. They're both prepared to give a free card. Willing to bet this is going to be a bet call. I'm not sure who's going to be doing the betting, though. Looks like Phil.
Jesus. Come on, work with me here.
Adam Sandler didn't vote for him. Adam Sandler never voted
10,000.
If there's any value in raising this, I can't see it.
Cool.
He calls pretty quickly.
And Phil Ivey continues to hemorrhage money. Phil Ivey, once again watching his chips go to another player.
Phil to act first in this pot. The button in front of Alan Cunningham. Phil still trying to dig himself out of this hole.
Pass.
It's only going to take one big pot. He's going to have to clash with Patrick Antonius, though. He's the only person with enough money in front of him to get him out of it.
You got to hand it to Phil Ivey. He's a fighter. Most players would have stopped way before. He has rebought again. Another $300,000.
You have 2 black chips.
Raise from Roland. Chris
There's
Ferguson.
a lot of fight in that dog.
The total's looking about
That's
50.
what I thought.
About 50.
Chris trying to decide whether it's worth calling with his 4s.
Cool.
He decides it is. Roland DeWolf not with too much money in front of him. So your implied odds if you catch the 4 not so great.
Check.
Bad flop for Chris Ferguson.
3,001.
Roland doing the continuation bet. This one's probably going to get through.
Yeah, Ferguson's ahead, but of course, how does he know that?
We were playing in another TV game and Hoyt Corkins was playing.
Little smile for Roland despite being stuck right now. He's $43,000 behind, just 57 left of his starting 100,000. You wouldn't think so with a smile like that on his face. Maybe because he knows he's just bluffed Chris Ferguson out of a pot.
King, queen. Oh, yeah, I remember. I didn't play against White.
And here's the leaderboard after 287 hands. Patrick Antonius, almost $500,000, up $250,000. Chris Ferguson with almost 200,000. Alan Cunningham with 170. Brian Townsend with nearly 300,000. And Phil Ivey with over $400,000 in front of him.
We've got a raise already from Brian Townsend. Ace-3 of spades for him. 1 caller.
Cool.
These two are definitely trying to get out of it. It's Phil Ivey and Brian Townsend. Here's the flop.
I got my last 3 and hold them.
Wow.
That's a monster flop for Phil Ivey. He's flopped the flush, but unfortunately for him, Brian doesn't have anything.
Well, he's got bottom pair. It's gone check, check. An ace or a 3 could mean some fireworks.
Well, 8 of diamonds is neither.
Still might get a call.
Yeah, I imagine he might.
Can you trade 2 of his holding bracelets for 1 non-holding bracelet?
No, because that would take him out of the lead.
5,000.
What would I pay for 1 of Alan's?
I think Brian's checked the flop to be able to call the turn if Ivey decides to try and steal it, and that's what's happened.
Cool.
Here comes the river.
Yeah, this pot has quickly grown to $15,000. And that's an interesting card there. You've now got aces and 8s. The 3 does not play. Unfortunately, the 8 on the turn might kill a little action.
No, I
think that was a check there from Phil. He's trying to induce a bet from Brian Townsend.
Oh, great play by Phil Ivey. And look at this. Here's an $12,000 bet from Brian Townsend into a $15,000 pot. The pot is now $27,000. And Phil Ivey is going to at least call and probably raise this, would you say?
Well, he's seen... Yep, that's a 250,000. That's 50,000.
42 total.
And I love the way Brian Townsend value bets that river. But it does open him up to a lot of check raising. Pot is 69,000. 38 to call.
And he wins every trip in the side game. He's had 3 losing trips in 10 years.
Well played by Phil Ivey, huh?
Especially if he can get a call here.
I'd like to make a big bet that I haven't ranked properly.
Behind Nunga.
These players know each other very well, and look at that nice fold by Brian Townsend. He's learned from his earlier mistake.
Yeah, Phil Ivey with the best hand. Trying to get a 50,000 out of Brian Townsend. He probably would have got the 12,000 anyway.
I like the way Phil Ivey played that hand, I really do. The only saving grace for Brian Townsend is this is on TV eventually. And he'll be able to see that he was beaten.
Well, it's fair to say that Phil Ivey has had a disaster, but in contrast, Patrick Antonius is going very nicely. However, it is Tony G who currently leads the way here at the FullTiltPoker.com $1 million cash game. Do join us next time as the action intensifies. From all of us, though, it's bye.